Green figs and saltfish.
Green who? Figs.
Green figs and saltfish.
That's green banana, yes. Okay, we like that too. Figs. No, you said green figs. Figs.
Yes, green figs, green bananas and saltfish.
That's right, green bananas. I know that. All right then. So
Yes.
okay, so I'm glad you had a good time. You might have to go on a diet now. But anyway. Okay, we didn't have any such thing, but our time is coming. Monday in August. The first Monday in August, we'll be eating goat, curried goat, and rice and peas. All right. This evening, from last week, we had planned that we were going to look at Bloom's taxonomy a little bit closer, and that we would give some clues as to the types of language you would use at the different levels. Because sometimes a student would give a response and you need to probe. And you're not just going to probe aimlessly. You're going to try to take them from where they are and see if they can give you some response at a higher level. So last week we spoke about that part, but I said this week we are going to it in more detail. And so we are going to look at good questioning techniques and effective classroom discourse. We're going to look at good questioning techniques and effective classroom discourse. So we should be able to classify classroom questions according to Bloom's taxonomy. I have another paper here which has other taxonomies that I will mention briefly. Construct classroom questions at all 6 levels of the Bloom's taxonomy for educational objectives. Describe additional teaching strategies for increasing the quantity and quality.
Thank you. You want to close it, right? Yes. Right, thank you.
So we are going to be looking at that. There is a book that a wife and husband made a big contribution to, and look up classroom teaching skills, and it's SADKER, SADKER. It's Myra and David Sadker. And there is a section in there which discusses questioning skills. So, to question well is to teach well. And we have heard about Dewey already as one of the people who did some research on education, teaching, and learning. Research findings generally support the view that questions that require thought rather than memory increase student achievement on all tests. There is the view that questions that require thought rather than memory increase student achievement on tests. Students show that teachers ask between 70 and 90 questions in a 20-minute period. In contrast, students ask 1 question per month, if any at all, because sometimes the way the class is structured, the teacher has something to get through. They have to reach this point by the end of the class, and so therefore you find that the students are not invited for discussion. But that is when the class is teacher-centered. You're going to get this information, you're going to make notes on it, and next week we'll be having a test to see if you swap the notes and know what is going on. And so another thing too, with the 70 and 90 questions per 20 minutes, that if you have a class for 1 hour, you're asking a whole lot of questions. But generally find that the questions are those that require one-word answers. What is the formula for finding perimeter, or what is mean, something like that, and not anything that the child is really questioning or thinking about. You are supplying the stimulus and they are stimuli and they are responding to you. A lot of time it is in chorus. And so we're going to see that we're moving away from that in a meaningful way as gradually or sometimes very fast, depending on the teacher. To be an effective teacher, you must witness. Classroom teaching skills. Somebody asked, what's the question? What's the name of the book again? It's Classroom Teaching Skills. And James Cooper is the editor. It is a book where different teachers make different contributions for the whole book on different topics. And this wife and husband, this couple, made contributions on questioning skills. To be an effective teacher, you must become an effective questioner. In order to become an effective questioner, you must recognize that questions have distinct qualities. Questions serve different functions and solicit different responses. And we know very well the rhetorical questions that teachers can ask. Like if the class is unruly, you say, excuse me? Like, you know, what's going on here? We need to get back and give our focused attention to what is going on. Sorry. Questions serve different functions and solicit different responses. Some require memory. What is the capital of St. Lucia? I didn't St. Lucia.
Castries.
Pardon me?
Castries.
Castries. Okay, so that is a knowledge question.
Yes.
You either know it or you don't. You don't have to think. You can only try to search your memory. And if you don't know it, several people in the room could tell you it. So that is the lowest form of questioning. That is the knowledge form. Who was the Prime Minister before the present Prime Minister? St. Lucia. St. Lucia.
Stephen King.
Stevenson.
Hi.
Yes. So the thing is that those are knowledge-based questions. They're at the bottom of the totem pole because you learn it and you can recite it. Some require memory, one-word answers, like you said, castries. Others require thought and application of concepts. They call it conceptual understanding in mathematics. Both types of questions have merit, but research shows that 90% of the teacher's questions require memory. Because I think a lot of times when the teacher comes to the class for the first few minutes, they are recapping something from yesterday or the last class, if it's not a daily class, a class that meets daily. But they recap, and so therefore we did, remember students, we did so-and-so, and what did we say, and the blank, and the students fill in the blank. Bloom's taxonomy provides a conceptual framework to look at 6 types of questions. Each question is designed to engage the student at a different level of the thought process. A table with 6 types of questions and the words used, we will go over them today. As you will see, knowledge questions require recall. Knowledge questions require recall. Comprehension questions require that students recall present and past learning and be able to provide an answer in their own words. So that means they sufficiently understand what is going on. So first of all, they can see connections and they can tell you a story about it. They can tell you something, not just a one-word fill in the blank kind of a question.
So what does it require? Comprehension question requires what? Could you repeat, please?
Recall of present and past learning.
Thank you.
And you can say it in your own words because you have sufficiently digested the material so you can talk about it freely in your own words. Okay, now we're moving on to application. Application. And beside these different levels, I wanted to leave some space because I'm going to give you some words that you may use to ask those questions. If you want the child to be in an application mode or frame of mind or so on, you have these words that you may be able to use. So for application questions, students retrieve previous knowledge to solve present problems. Students receive previous knowledge to solve present problems. So for instance, if I teach something like the Pythagorean theorem, the knowledge part is to know that the square on the sum of the legs, the sum of the square of the legs is equal to the square on the hypotenuse. That would be just knowing the Pythagorean theorem. But if I say I am flying a kite, and the amount of string I have on the kite is 55 meters? 55 meters. If I'm flying a kite, what does it look like if you're thinking about a triangle? What part of the triangle? We have leg, hypotenuse. What the string on the top?
The string is the hypotenuse?
Yes, the string will be the hypotenuse. So therefore, I say that it is 55. And that the chord makes an angle of 30 degrees with the ground. Then I should be able to find everything about the triangle by using trig formulas. Do we see that? Right?
Yes.
If I know the hypotenuse, I can say that the cosine of 30 degrees would be, cosine is what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. So we can say the cosine of 30 degrees is such and such, and then you can know that it's adjacent over the hypotenuse. So we know the angle, we know the hypotenuse, we only have to find the leg. Do we see that? That would be an application, because the person, just like you recognize that the string would form the hypotenuse, and we know that if we're standing on the ground would be the flat region, so it would be one leg of the triangle. And if we wanted to find the height, the perpendicular height from where the kite is to the ground, that would be the next leg. Do we see that? Do we see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So the thing is, though, that we need to be sure that that child can take the information they got about the kite and see that the Pythagorean theorem applies, or one of the trig functions. I said application, the student retrieve previous knowledge to solve a problem. In application, the student retrieves, not receive, retrieves previous knowledge to solve a problem. I just gave you that problem out of my head, but that is one that fits, where I know a formula and I don't see it in isolation just to find the legs on it, but I can apply it to a situation. Do we get that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Then we have, for questions at the analysis level, the student must be able to identify and use contextual clues, factual knowledge as a basis for reaching a conclusion or making a generalization. Okay? So we have a situation where our students are able to generalize to solve another problem. Because we might know that it takes, if I say that if I measure this triangle and measure this triangle and measure the angles of this triangle and measure 6 of them, right? What I'm going to get the sum of the angles of a triangle is, the sum of the angles of a triangle is
180 degrees.
180 degrees.
If I give you a big triangle and I give you a small triangle, I give you a right triangle, I give you a scalene triangle, and I measure all of them with my protractor, and I see that every time I measure, I'm getting 180 degrees. I can generalize. I can generalize. Okay? So when you analyze, when you're at the analysis level, you may be able to generalize or at least conjecture. You know, I have so many instances where the measurement of the triangle, the angles of a triangle gives me 180 degrees. So I'm saying to myself, you know, it seems like this could be a rule that we can accept because I've used so many different triangles. Do we see that? And there are exercises that you can give to your class using paper and paper tearing to line up. Everybody knows that one, where we can take off the three angles of a triangle and line it up on a straight line. Do we know that? Do we know that?
The 3 angles of a triangle and line them up.
I have a triangle in my hand, and I just have a triangle, any triangle. It doesn't have to be any special triangle, because we know 6 triangles, right? By angles and by sides. What are the triangles by angles that we know? What are the triangles by angles that we know?
Triangle.
We know right triangle. That's
Isosceles.
isosceles.
Equilateral.
Scalene, equilateral.
All right, let us get it straight. We're talking about triangles by sides, right? We have what? We have obtuse. Right triangle. No, that's
Okay.
we have obtuse.
Acute.
Didn't you say by
I have triangles. Reflex.
Is the mic on?
Yeah.
But
No.
Reflex angle is also
Hello.
90 degrees.
We can't have a reflex angle because a reflex angle is more than 180 degrees. That's the outside. That's the outside of the external angle.
okay, waking up. Jeez.
We have
Okay.
obtuse, we have acute, and we have scalene. That's by sides. Then by angles we have right triangle, we have isosceles triangle, and we have, what is the one? Equilateral triangle. That's equilateral is by sides as well, but it has all 60-degree angles. So what I'm saying is this, that is a generalization because we have proved it, we have done it, we have know that we learned it, that the sum of the angles of any triangle, no matter what the shape, the internal angles give me 180 degrees. That would be an analysis thing because we see it so many times, we interact with it so many times, we can make a conjecture. A conjecture is an educated guess. That if it works for the first 10 and the second 10 and the third 10, group of 10, we can begin to conjecture that the sum of the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. And by the way, there is no high school test that come on Earth between here and Mars that doesn't have that idea somewhere hidden in it. There is no test that does not come up with this, some reason to say that the sum of the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. If we're dealing with the Pythagorean theorem, 3, 4, 5 triangle is bound to be there. We need to know it. We need to drill it into our kids' heads. We need to see that they can work on Pythagorean triples like 5, 12, 13, and that kind of a thing. Because that is there, it does not, it is there forever in one form or the other. So, oh, well, I'd like a bigger piece of paper.
So you're going to measure it?
No, I'm not going to measure it. What's the angle on a straight line?
180 degrees.
Very good. I have a big piece of paper now, so everybody look. I'm going to 180 degrees, right?
Yes.
So, for this convenience, I'm going to take the. You can see this? For you get a triangle. Get a triangle in your hand. You can do it too, St. Lucia, and where is am I? Bermuda? Where am I?
This is my good people.
You see me holding up my triangle? Make triangles for yourself. Any kind, any shape. Any shape. Any shape. Make a triangle for yourself. It's so easy.
My triangle, the end.
Have your triangle ready? Do you have your triangle ready? Why are you laughing? All right. Did you have your triangle now? Do you have your triangle now? All right.
Yes, we have.
At each, can you see my triangle? Can you see my triangle?
No, I can't see.
No. We can't see.
Put it where you were sitting.
You see the camera?
Yes. It looked like I saw something.
We can see it now.
All right. I want you to write 1, 2, 3, 1 at each vertex. 1 at one vertex, 2 at the other vertex, and 3 at the other vertex. Do you see that? Can you see it?
No, where you put the one? No. 1, 2.
Do you see what I'm pointing to?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. I saw.
Huh? 1,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Do you see that?
Right, yeah.
1, 2, 3. Now,
Yeah.
what I want you to do is prepare yourself a straight line. Take a straight line in your book or anywhere. Just label your triangles, and then this is what you're going to do. Hello? You are going to tear off these 3 angles like this. Do you see what I did? I tore off all my 3 numbered angles of each vertex. Do you see that?
Yes, yeah.
All right.
We're not seeing.
It takes a while, we have a delay.
Do you see it now?
No. Okay, now we're seeing.
Better?
We are seeing now.
Better? Okay. So I've torn off all my 3. And now I have a straight line. You can follow a line in your book or anywhere. I put all 3 angles together. 1, 2, 3. I don't have a, I can't put it on here, but I don't have any tape. This is my straight line. And I'm just putting all the numbered parts together. See? There it is. See, it forms a straight line, which is 180 degrees. That is to prove that the sum of the angles of any triangle is 180. See my straight line?
Let me see that.
Yes.
I don't have any finger tape. I don't have any tape, but can you see it now? Can you see my 3 angles? Can you see it? Can you see
Yeah.
Yes.
it? All right. So you can do that as an activity in your class to prove that the sum of the angles of any triangle, any shape, any size, anything is 180 degrees. Do you see this? And you can do this along with your students. You can bring some tape to the board and you can put it up there. And you draw exaggerated triangles so they can see exactly what you're doing. Bring yours to me. Bring yours to me. Because you're there wondering. Can you see St. Lucia? No, you have to come and see. Okay. One student in my class is going to see what he, I'm going to call this my straight line, right? So I put all this together, but you didn't even make a good triangle.
That's the thing, you can tear properly.
But I tear mine properly. What happened to you? See, like so? And then you put on this other one right here.
And then you put this.
It's supposed to be a straight line.
It's how it's torn.
Okay. It's supposed to make a straight line, but you don't have straight lines. So okay. You see it? It's supposed to be a straight line. But your thing not torn properly.
If we use like a scissor,
yes.
Yeah.
You see?
But it's just how
Do
it's
you see the
torn.
straight line coming? So the sum of the angles. See, my straight line came. My straight line came. See, I start my straight line here because I'm lining up, right? Then I put this one here, and then put my other one here. You see my straight line? So the sum of the angles of the triangle is 180 degrees, because 180 degrees is the angle on a straight line. Did you get it? Did you get it? No, you don't have to take it anyway. You don't have to take it in a special way. Where is it? May I see this? May I see yours? May I see yours?
Mine was torn. I told you mine was torn. Because it's the angle that I line up, but I was watching you while you were doing it.
Okay, so this is 2.
That's 2.
Oh boy. Because this is not a, that is not a vertex, you know. Okay, so that, and it doesn't matter. Look at yours, it comes out.
I saw it.
You see it came out? See that it came out here?
I saw it.
Do you see it now? And then you can do this, like how we draw the angles.
The angles, right. Once you have the angles, then you will see. You draw it, you see a 180.
See the 180 right there?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. So did you get it, everybody? Did you get your angles line up to be 180 degrees?
I'm still making.
What you have to do when you're going to your classes, you have to prepare this ahead of time, because the same difficulty you have here without scissors is the same difficulty they have to have without scissors in class. So if you're going to do this activity to prove
You know the angles.
when you mark
it, you don't just write the number, you mark the angles so that
it jumps at you quicker.
So I have 1, 2, 3, and then I just tear it off.
So what do you do? Fix them in as a puzzle, Dr. Nelson?
Put all the numbers together at one point, and you should get them on a straight line.
You fix them through as like a puzzle?
No, you just put all the numbers that you have at one point, and you get a straight line, no matter what you do.
You put it on one point?
No, on a straight line. Side by side, you know, side by side. Can you see it? Wait, let me put it on the black. Any triangle I see, I get it. So any triangle you have, you should get it too, also.
3 is in the middle. That's how it comes. 3.
It doesn't matter where. I had tape. All right. Can you put it up there now so that they can see? Can you see mine? It's on black.
Yes.
You see mine on black?
Yes, I see it. Right. I see it.
Yeah. So you just put the numbers together and let them fit up together, and they will form a straight line. You don't have to put them in any given order. St. Lucia, did you get yours? St. Lucia?
Yes, I did.
You got yours?
Yes, we did.
Very good. All right. So, and teachers, when you are going to your classroom, make sure you have it down pat before you start showing somebody something that you didn't quite get, okay? But you have to prepare for it.
I know we have to.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking if we don't get it done, pack right, then we go before they laugh at us, so we have to get it done.
And it doesn't matter the order in which you line them up. But the thing is, what you want to be convincing about is that it works for any triangle. So you have right triangle, you have scaling triangle, you have isosceles triangle, you have equilateral triangle, any triangle. And just rip off the points, but you have to, the vertices, but you have to put them back together again. And that is a proof that the sum of the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. So if you do it over and over and over again, you might be able to make a generalization. And that's what the analysis level is all about. So you have the contextual clues, you have the factual knowledge, and then you can go on to make that. Now at synthesis, which is the highest level, the students must use the information to make predictions and exhibit the ability to solve problems. So for instance, if we know distance, right? We know the formula for finding the distance in miles or kilometers. Do you use kilometers in St. Lucia? Do you use kilometers or miles in St. Lucia? You're not hearing.
Both. But more miles. Yeah, more miles. But more miles. The signs are still in miles.
Okay. So the person should be able to say that if we get, if we can go 10 miles going at such and such a rate, how much time it will take us, they should be able to plan a longer trip. They should be able to plan a longer trip because that formula is going to be used in just the same manner. And so they should be able to find the distance if they know the other two. You can find the distance if you know the rate and the time. You can find any one of the three, knowing two of them. So students should not be learning something in isolation so that once they have learned it, they package it aside and don't see how it's linked to other ideas and other situations. All right, now, did you leave a space beside knowledge? Did you leave a space beside knowledge?
Yes.
All right, the words associated with knowledge, when you want a child to answer a knowledge question, right? You can say what, you can say who, you can say when, you can say those kinds of things. And that is what reporters do. Whenever you're getting a story in the newspaper, they're going to tell you who, what, when.
What?
That's the leading information they give you for you to get an understanding of the story. Do we see that? So they define, these are the words that you can use for knowledge-based questions. Define. What is a triangle? Define. What is algebra? Those are definitions. You know it and you reel it off. What is algebra? What is algebra? Anybody?
What's algebra?
Pardon me? Use variables to represent numbers. You're warming up very nicely.
Variables to represent numbers, different variables.
Yes, you can use that. But generally speaking, algebra generalizes arithmetic, right? Algebra generalizes arithmetic. So you can say 5 plus 3 equals 8. Or you can say x plus 3 equals 8. What is x? That kind of a thing. So we deal with variables, or sometimes we call them unknowns. So these are the keywords that you can use if you want a child to give you information that is based on knowledge. Are you ready to take the list? Are you ready to write the list down? Class?
Yes.
Are you ready to
Yes, we're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are the words that you can use if you want to pose a question that's a knowledge level question you could include some of these vocabulary items. They are define, recall, who.
What's the third one, please?
Who? Like, who's the Prime Minister of the country? Something
Who?
Like WHO.
Oh, who?
Dave, okay. Dave.
So far we are at define, recall, who, what, when, where. I could ask a child in grade school, where is Kingston? They would have to say Kingston is on the what coast? People. Kingston is on the south coast. So that is the where. Alright? Then you can say Kingston is sandwiched between what two parishes? Something like that. Those are all knowledge-based questions. Okay.
Excuse me, St. Catherine and
St. Thomas.
And St. Thomas. Portland. St. Thomas and St. Catherine.
Okay, but St. Catherine has to do something in there, and St. Andrew has to do something in there. Yes. Okay. Now, comprehension level questions. You want to see if the child understands. And so, therefore, you're going to say, describe. These are the words you're going to use if you want the child to demonstrate comprehension. Yes, everybody? Describe. Compare.
Come what?
Compare. Contrast. Put in your own words. That's a phrase. That's not a one word. Put in your own words. Explain the main idea. Because you have to understand it in order to explain it. Are we okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now the third level up is application. Application. Of course, application, the root word is apply. So those are some of the words you can say. Apply the Pythagorean theorem to this question. Do we see that? Okay.
Right.
Classify. Okay. Classify. If a person has to classify something, put things in classes, they have to know what is the same about them. You have to have a characteristic because you're going to put them in a set thing. And remember, a set format has elements that share the same characteristics. Yes? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we are there. Yeah.
Write an example. Write an example. So if you give your students a question, right? You can say, write an example of anything that that you're teaching at that time. You can ask them to write an example. What is an open-ended question? What's an open-ended question? A closed-ended question is something like what? Huh? Yeah, some of the knowledge-based questions are closed-ended, right? But if I say to you, give me an example of an equation for which the answer is whatever you want it to be. That means the person has to go on the inside of themselves. They have to be creative. They have to pick out something because this is not a question you give them all written out and say, find the answer. But if you say, give me an example of a question that the answer is 30. If you're teaching primary school, you can say number pairs that give me 30. If they can add only at that point when you're asking that. That would be a different question than if you have already taught addition and subtraction. Do we see that?
Retrieve previous knowledge.
Yes, exactly. So therefore, if the person has to create what it is that the animal that you want, that is an application question. When you write an example, that means you know that it applies to this particular area. Okay? Now, the next one up on the fourth rung of the ladder is analysis. Analysis. We should have left a space there to write down these words that help you to ask questions that will get the students to go in their minds to the place where they begin to analyze things. And so we have, why? Why did you say that? The person had to say, I say that because of this characteristic, of that characteristic. I say that because when we had such and such, we got that result, and so I know that kind of a thing. So it's no longer a one-word answer, no longer, okay? So we have the analysis. How can we do this? How can we do that, right? A person has to know that if I'm packing a box with smaller boxes, and I know the length and the width of the box, then I have to go now and search how boxes of what size can I, smaller boxes, to fill up the space. Do we see that? So we have those kinds of language to get the students to go into their analysis bag. We want them to go in their comprehension bag. We want them to go. And you know, though, that knowledge is included in every one of them. Do we understand that?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we have to know a formula to do something. We have to, and those are one word, those are knowledge-based questions. That is why people say, you know, pencil and paper task or that kind of thing. Procedural knowledge is, you know, is frowned upon. Everything boils down to some procedure. But it's how we get there and how much creation we have to do to get to whatever it is that we are doing. Then we have the synthesis question. And that is when you jump up and down when a kid asks you, Miss or Sir, what if so-and-so or so? Would it be the same answer? Or would it be? You begin to dance in the streets because the kid is now thinking to say, is there a place where this will fit? Will it fit if we change the circumstances? And then you get into what you call the synthesis style, right? How can we solve this? How can we solve this problem? Say, for instance, you know that schools go on field trip all the time, right? Yes?
Yes.
We go on field trips all the time. Field trips might mean that you have to get a bus. Field trips might mean that you have to get chaperones, that, you know, we have one adult looking at 5 kids to keep them, especially if we're going to an open air situation. Because you don't see the event. You're only monitoring the people that are going to see the event because your concerns are different from the students. Okay? So to do the synthesis problem now, you have to say, do I want a bus of 65 students, you know, to hold 65 if I have 15-seater buses? What is the cost? You know, all that has to be worked out. So you have to pull this thing together to make it whole. And so therefore, we have what we call synthesis. And what would happen if, you know, the conditions, what would happen if? That is a phrase that we use. So you can say, you know, I like what you just said about it, but what would happen if you're sending the kids right to the place where they have to do some synthesis as part of their answer, so they have to think. And how can we solve this? How can we solve this, right? Like, for instance, if I do not have an umbrella, do I sit here for the next hour while it is raining, or can I devise some methods of using a big trash bag to make a raincoat to do some, you know, I see possibilities everywhere. I see possibilities everywhere. Now in evaluation, when you're evaluating, every teacher knows about evaluation. Give me some words that we could use for evaluating. Every time
Judge.
What? Every
Judge.
Time, what? Judge?
Choose or judge. Or
yes, judges.
Choose which one to think.
Yes.
Choose which one to think is the better one.
Give your opinion. Give your opinion. Yeah. And you see, a lot of teachers do not like to get into those things because they claim it wastes time. They can't reach their objective by the end of the class if you're going to be judging and you're going to be giving opinion and justifying and so on. But you know, a good way, some people do not like multiple choice questions, but you'll be surprised at the amount of information that if you give it in kind of a format where you say, choose one of these and justify. Choose one of these and justify. Do you see that? You get a whole lot. You're at the top of the ladder of thinking. So that is some of the things that we have. Some of the trigger words you can use in your questioning when you want to engage the kid at a higher level. Yes? Okay. You have to phrase your questions thoughtfully. And you know why this is important? In a class, we generally have mixed abilities. No matter how they say they're streaming or they're homogeneous grouping, because all these people are in the 80 band on the test, so we're going to put them together. But within that 80 band, from the 79, from 80 to 89, right? You are going to find that even in those groupings, you have differentiation. So when you're doing an assessment, which is the same thing, as evaluating, right? You need to put some thought into the assessment activities that you're going to give to your class. Johnny might be giving the biggest problems because he is not challenged. But you cannot write every test at the evaluation level. Because that is a top level of thinking. And all of these others are included in subtle fashions or not so subtle fashions. So what you do, you make questions on the hierarchy of the Bloom's taxonomy. The poor fellow who cannot write, or the poor little girl who she writes and she writes and she writes and she's writing off the page and she doesn't know it. You give her fill in the blanks, right? You give some people who cannot write at all to circle. You give them a full narrative and you let them circle. So you can do different things in assessing the same activity at different levels. Do we understand that?
Yes, yes.
Now you have your words. You can begin your questions. What if, right? A child must know that if we are going to go the same distance at different speeds, when are we going to finish the journey? The one who is going at the faster rate. Yes? They must know that. They must be able to see that. They don't have to sit down and write out everything to find what's the time. Do you see? Because distance is equal to rate multiplied by time. And if I'm going to go at a faster rate, it's going to take me less time to get there. And you'll also get a ticket from the police because you're breaking the speed limit. But that doesn't matter. You're still going to get there faster. Yes? So here we have this situation. Here we have the situation that when people see good roads, they begin to drive really, really crazy. And so a child should be able to know that. And sometimes you do not ask for answers to problems because that is what we are noted for. Give me the answer. But I'd like to hear the journey you take to get to the point. Okay? So, as I said before, none of these are of little importance. All of them are of, importance. But we are trying to coach the child and to appeal to the different levels of abilities in our class so that people can be challenged to the point. Now, when we write an example, we should give, when we write an assessment or evaluation paper, we should have a situation where most of the children can pass what you have taught. But there are some people in there who knew what you were going to say 4 steps hence. So you want to give them the challenge. So you have to think, let them create their own questions, let them justify their answers, that kind of stuff. And you will get them into the mode where they're higher up on the taxonomy ladder.
Okay, nice.
Yes.
Just a question. I'm looking at
You have to speak to the whole class.
now I'm just looking at something that compares the domains, and they have an original domain and a new domain where evaluation and synthesis are juxtaposed, i.e. evaluation comes before synthesis.
Well, I don't think that is a trouble. That's because you see, by the time you reach synthesis and evaluation, which are the 2 highest steps, you're melding everything. You're melding everything. But I would not be concerned about that. And the thing about it is, the English language is so flexible that you can justify anything you want. But since we know you have to have some knowledge before you can comprehend. You have to know knowledge and comprehension before you can apply. You see what I'm saying? So if they change spots, it's not like they're so far apart, you know?
Just reflecting your thinking.
Yes, you know, and people are free to do that. Yes, because look at what we're going to say in synthesis. What will happen if evaluation, which is the better picture? You see what I'm saying? You could say the picture is better because of the lighting, because what will happen if we change the light? You see how the lighting structure, you see how closely, they're twins, really. Yes, because sometimes on the, it's just, if you rotate something, it doesn't change the structure. If you have some ice cream cone in your hand, and the ice cream comes in 3 dimensions, the ice cream scoop is 3 dimensions. If it falls on the floor, the volume doesn't change. If it melts out, the volume is the same. Do you see that? So it's just in another way. Do we see that? So if I go to Devon House and buy 2 scoops or 3 scoops and 1 drop off, if it melts on the ground, the volume is the same. Do we see that? Eh? Yes, it was a different bulk density at that time. Do we see that? So the thing about it is that the volume hasn't changed. It's just in another form. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry about evaluation and synthesis. If they wanted to put synthesis at the beginning and evaluation at the end, then, you know, probably there'd be some concern. Eh? Yes, okay. So when you're making your lesson plans, if you want to appeal to different levels in your classroom, you start some questions from the knowledge level and build up and build up. So you now have some ammunition that you may use. Were the questions, questioning skills we're still talking about, were the questions are not to be asked or read to the students. It's better to give them in stages and get them to finish the project that way. Sometimes it also helps to help a child who, if they hear, I need a project on, see how I'm giving you the project? I'm giving you the project in January, and it's not due till the end of March. That project for some kids will not be done because they look at it as one big challenge and they do not see the steps, right? So you can say, gather this for me and bring it by January the 20th. You have that. And by the time you stretch out all the dates, the child sees it at different levels. And by the time they finish answering your questions and doing what you say to do, they have their work finished, their project. Okay? If we're going to talk about doing a survey, then we have to do a survey, then we have to write up the material, then we have to look at some measurements based on the data that we have. Then we have to make some kind of decision and come to some. It's a long story. But if you say, this thing is due in stages, you can get some questions. So it's not this one big thing to present and you try to do it the night before. It's totally impossible. So therefore, what we do, we break it down for the kids. Same thing with the test items. We ask some questions to gain their understanding at different levels, and we see that the one who is the brightest, you give that person something to do as well. But it should be so written that more than 50%, and not the same 50%, can pass the test. And you do not test what you haven't taught. The only place they get that is what you call standardized test. What we do in class is criterion reference test. Do we know the difference between criterion referenced and standardized?
Yeah, criteria.
Go ahead.
Right.
What is a criterion reference test as opposed to a standardized test?
Standardized test would be like your GSAT or something.
But GSAT, I don't think GSAT is a standardized test.
It's supposed to be.
I don't think GSAT is a standardized test because
all grade 6. This level, that's in everybody at this level.
Yes, but they spell it out so clear that only the Lord knows. But anyway, I will accept that. But there are some, the criterion reference is what you do most of the time in your classes. Your informal, your formative, and your summative evaluations. Those are criterion reference. I show you the structure of how you do long division, the procedure, right? Can you do 2 of these problems, right? Can you isolate and write a mathematical sentence from this that is based on whatever topic you're teaching at that time? Compound, can you write, without giving me the answer, what you would do if you have to find the area? I'm just picking this out of my head, so I don't know what grade it is. But anyway, can you write a sentence for how you would find the area of a compound figure? Suppose you have a rectangle and a semicircle, right? You expect that probably they will break it down into shapes that they are aware of. And then you would write area of 1A. You can call 1A, 1B, 1C. So you can say area of A plus area of B plus area of C. That is the beginning that you know the person understands what they are going to do. So if I have a rectangle and I have a semicircle, it just would be 2 parts to it. So I would have, if I call the area of the rectangle A and the area of the circle B, semicircle B, then I would have to know that I see a part of a circle. I'd have to know that the area, using the area, I must have to divide by 2 because I don't have a full circle. Do we see that? So once they have an area of A plus area of B, then in area of A, they would have to supply length times width. In area of B, which is a semicircle, they'd have to write pi r squared divided by 2. And you have a plus sign between these values. But the first thing they have to appreciate that there are 2 different types of shapes. Do we see that? Okay, so therefore, we have phrasing your question is what is important. And once we phrase our questions using these clue items, we know where we're sending them in their minds. They don't know it, and it's seamless. You don't have to, what to say, justify. Justify. You understand? You are going into deep, deep spaces of their minds. Besides phrasing and asking questions, the teacher will have to judge if the response is appropriate. Did the answer that the student gave show that the student understood the question that was asked. If this is not the case, then the teacher has to use additional questions in an attempt to get students to provide a more appropriate answer. Like what happened in class today? Somebody said something in a class I had today, and she was way, way off, and another student, corrected her. So that happens sometimes. And when a child is way, way off or not on target, then you know what techniques to use not to discourage a child. What techniques are you going to use?
Redirect.
Redirect to another child, or ask the child, did you think about this? Or something of that nature. But we have to keep the student engaged. Okay?
You can probably say like, okay, however,
yes. And so, anybody want to say something about what she said? That kind of thing.
But don't just want to say, oh, incorrect.
Yes, right. You don't do that. All right. So there are 4 techniques that teachers may use to give desired responses to their question. The list of 4 suggested strategies include wait time, and I spoke about that last week. Wait time. What's the area of a circle? You answer it yourself, or you begin to chide them. We did that last week. How come you don't? No, we don't go there. We do not go there. Okay? Wait time allows the student to reflect on the question and most likely will provide a thoughtful answer if given more time. One way you buy time for the student is to ask them another question that is more probing and see if that is what they will do. Research findings show that if teachers increase their wait time, students will volunteer more often to answer questions. If the student in that big, if the teacher is in that big of a hurry, students might say, I can't get it right this minute, and she wants it snap, snap, and so therefore, I just won't bother to engage. All right? Second strategies is positive reinforcement and reward. We kind of talked about that already. It can be verbal, it can be non-verbal. If the question is on target, you say, good, excellent. That is providing positive enforcement. Another practice that is effective is to treat students as another source of information. Use their ideas in your lesson. They say, oh, I contributed something today, right? Like, I did not know what is significant figures. And they say it so many times on what, CSEC? Significant figures? I don't know that. So somebody taught me, right? So you have a student can. Do you imagine if a student can help you to do something? If you're graphing up a quadratic, right? You know it is in a cup shape. If the leading coefficient is positive, stand up. The cup standing up. Isn't that true? The quadratic. Yes?
Yeah, minimum, yes.
If they say that if it goes below, if a part of it goes below the line, and you say, and the inequality that you're looking at says something greater than, how many papers used? Oh no. Oh, now I have that piece of paper down. Right, it's the same thing. All right. So if I don't know what this is, but suppose, I'm going to show it to you in a minute. This is the y-axis. This is the x-axis, right? Are you looking at this? Can you see it? Can you
Not
see
yet.
it?
No.
No, not yet. Okay, yes.
Can you see it?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes.
We can see it now.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
So if I'm going to write an inequality, which I don't know anything about, ax squared plus bx plus c greater than or equal to 0. After I factor this, you can see it? After I factor it, the child could give me a drawing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me put, I'm going to put -3 and +3. Can you see -3 and +3?
Yes, there is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See it?
So, yes.
X with -9.
Let me do +3. I'm going to bring some bigger boards next time. But listen, if I want something to be greater than or equal to 0, what part am I going to shade of this? Greater than 0. Did I put greater than 0? Yes. Greater than 0 right here.
On the negative side here.
Greater than.
Greater than 0.
Greater than 0, right?
You say greater than or equal to 0?
Yes.
Oh, that would be on the right
Greater
side.
than 3, less than 8.
Also be on the left.
On the right side, on my right side.
Everything that is greater than 0 is above this line.
Above.
Yeah, like the x-axis.
That would be where you would shade. Do you see that? Do you see that?
That's for X. For the
This is for greater than or equal to 0, but it's not X.
right.
Yes. Do you see that? So for Y, no, it's the output. It's the output we want because it's a function. So the Y is a function of X.
Okay.
So what happened here, we would shade up this way, because if we go to this part of the parabola, then we will be in the less than part of the Y, because Y is negative below 0. Do you see that? Can you see it?
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
So the thing is, if a child cannot explain everything and he gives you this picture or she gives you this picture, they have answered the question. Do you understand that? Talking about
Yes.
evaluations. And you have to be a bright child to see this. You see what I'm saying? You have to be a bright child to see that. Because you know what happens? If we are going to get something, we have to pretend it's equals 0, but we know that it is less than. So one of the factors have to be negative and one of them be positive, and go to all of the stuff, and they can draw a picture and say, and they're done. Do we see that? Okay. So the child has to be bright to give you that. So if they don't give you the answer you think you want, look at what they're
I
doing.
have a set answer. That's
I want the truth. I don't know if you can give it to me. It doesn't have to be in numerical form. But this is Y is greater than this. All of these are taken out. Alright? Alright. Now, the good and excellent and the acceptance of an alternative way of giving your answer and all of that. But you know what I see in Jamaica? I don't know about you guys, but the teachers do 2 problems as examples. Ask them to do 5 and start marking the papers because they want to mark it before the class is over. So 10 minutes of teaching in a 1-hour class. So we have to be careful about that. Okay? All right. Third strategy, right, is probing question. And we have gone over that. You probe, you ask the person, you keep the person engaged, and you ask. That's the third. Fourth? Maybe the fourth. The third strategy. The first one was the wait time. The second one was reward. And the third one was providing.
treat students as another source of information.
Yes.
And the fourth one is probing.
Yes.
Probing.
And then the other one is equity in interaction. Right?
Could you read over the probing, please?
The probing is to ask another question. So, you know, what you have said is so and so, but did you consider such and such? So you're probing now. So you do not leave the child and go to somebody else for the answer. You see the potential in getting the answer for the child, and you probe. You probe. Okay? So the student will go on a higher level. And the teacher doesn't ignore. The teacher look for the time I'm putting up my hands, and sometimes they say it in different languages. But anyway, the thing is that another thing, teachers know their students after a while. And you know this child is going to take some time to get to where she's going or where he's going, and you don't even bother to call on that child. Because you know some eager beavers in the classroom who really don't know what they're talking about, you know, but they give it stab in the dark. You can redirect them and see if you can get something, right? The other things we must do, have equity in our classroom when we're asking questions. Children learn if they think you are interested and if you have expectations of them. Children learn. And that's what we're doing. Oh, she's not ignoring me at all. You know, some children sleep in class. Some children play with their phone in class. Some children play with their shoes, anything. And the teacher just keep on moving, keep on moving. The train is on the track. We are moving. And you do not ask, what is the matter or anything. Thank God he's sleeping. He shuts his mouth. You see what I'm saying?
No question what?
So teachers have a real unique job, and the quicker you learn that, the better off you are. Because sometimes the kids say, but I slept yesterday. I slept the day before. And nobody asked me any questions. You know, that kind of a thing. So teachers can help the kids to self-correct by the probing. That is the reason for it, right? The other thing too, sometimes we go to the brightest child in the class because the train is moving, we don't have time, right? And sometimes we go to boys more than girls, or we go to girls more than boys, because one of them have found a nice little space in our heart. And we do not say it and we do not admit it, but we really like this child, and she makes sense, and she doesn't give any trouble, and so we go to her all the time. But we have a class of more than one child, and so therefore we have to work with that. Okay? Now, as we said earlier, we sometimes have a class which is teacher-centered, everybody sitting in the row, everybody has pencil to the ready, everybody is writing, no participation on behalf of students, and so we get to 60 minutes. Yes, I can check off. I did addition of decimals of the curriculum that I'm to cover. Yes? But more and more we're finding out that groups that are well planned can help many students to achieve our intended objective. And we call them cooperative learning groups. Everybody has heard of that, I'm sure. Cooperative learning groups. Teachers, I want to tell you, they are not randomly selected, because generally cooperative groups have mixed ability students. Mixed ability. And talking about asking questions, we invite kids to ask questions when we deal with groups. Because how I work with groups sometimes is to say, if no one in your group can answer the question, then you can come to me. Other than that, work it out. Work in your group. That's another way where you get kids to ask kids questions. That is good questioning techniques. Because they might call them a name in the middle. You're stupid, but don't you see that this is, you see what I'm saying? And so kids can learn from kids. If you have a heterogeneous grouping, not just friends, form groups of 3 children, and you hear all the noise of forming the groups of 3, and it's friends. I don't want her in my group. I hope you don't call her over here. That kind of a thing. But you need to plan. You see how planning is important? The pre-active phase, which is called planning, is so important. It's so, what if they didn't plan airline flights? What if they didn't plan? You couldn't travel. You could not travel. Because not only they have to plan the trips for you to get there at a certain time, but they have to plan the gates, who's leaving from which gate and who's going where, and you make sure that those controllers do not have planes crashing into one another by giving the go-ahead for them to leave the airport. So teachers must plan and plan effectively. So in these cooperative learning groups, you need to know that you're going to sit down and say, based on what I've seen, this is March, I've had my students since January, I know a little about them now, I've got an idea with the parents, I've had 2 monthly evaluations, I'm getting to know the child, I'm going to put this one, and this one in the same group. And differing ability levels based on what I've seen so far from evidence, but I'm going to give this question to each group, and in the group they're responsible for the learning of each other, and you'll be surprised. Sometimes they don't say, what is so-and-so? They say, I don't understand this, you know. That is the way they ask the question. They're appealing for help. They're appealing for help. I do not understand this. They might say it in a whole different way, but they are really asking for help. Because the rule is that by the time, such and such a time, we are going to have something to show for the effort that was made in the group. You do not know who will be reporting. So everybody in this group is responsible. Ask a question now, get them answered, because you do not know who is going up there to give the report. The teacher sometimes can strategically go nearby and said, Michael, what is this? La la la, ask a question. Michael is hesitating a little bit. And he said, group members, why don't you fix this until I get back? So you are including all the children and you're asking them to ask each other questions or pass on information in a nice, informal manner. Because they're not going up there and saying, we're doing page 95, la, 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 like the teacher does. But the students can help other students. You have to know that cooperative groups, learning in groups, has to do with students asking students questions. Those are questions. Even if you say, I don't understand this. What? Show me. Another one will come over and say that. It's really an appeal for help. Yes. If this person, you know, sometimes in cooperative groups, you give something to be done, there's some things to handle, somebody wants to write, somebody wants to do this, and just leave this other person on the side. No, because you do not know who is the reporter right now. Because I have the last word on who is the reporter. Okay? They can engage in discussion, and instead of having, you said you have 35 people in your class? St. Lucia, you have 35 people in your class?
Yeah, about
35. Instead of looking at 35 individual papers, if you form some groups of 5 or so, you will be talking with one voice to 5 people at a time. And so that helps. But it must be planned or else it gets chaotic, it will waste time, and kids do not learn because some drop out because they become disinterested. Now, the discussion will help students to retain the material. That's how children learn. The discussion they have in their groups will help students to retain the material. Sometimes the group can stay together for just the class, if that is your plan. Sometimes you see so much progress coming out of there, or the one Mr. Michael who wasn't doing so well, he might have a good rapport with the rest of the members, and you can say, you know, form your usual groupings, and they know themselves and they will do that. The other thing that in the group, you have to know that the outcomes is tangible. Outcomes are tangible. You can see it. You can hear it. You can hear the reports. You can see the product. That kind of a thing. And the 5 kids participated, or the 4 kids, as the case may be. So So you have to assign groups yourself. Because if you say 4 groups of 3, the little cliques are going to come together. Okay? You monitor the groups as you go around. Because questions are being asked and you listen. Oh, this guy is getting into the activity. This guy is getting, and probably you wouldn't ask a full group. You wouldn't ask it if it was to the whole class. But he might have some kind of social standing in the group where he has been placed, and he will ask questions there. And maybe don't mind if he made a mistake, because they have worked together so well. So you could do this. So if you seek if a child seeks assistance in a class, is maybe not verbally, but surely that child is asking some questions. All right? So you have good, what you'd say, benefits from the grouping, besides just asking questions. You have interdependence, and it's positive. We're in this together. We want to prove, and especially if you have a little bit of competition, not anything to get somebody frustrated, but a little bit of competition, right? In the first 3 groups to finish, that might put them on a speedier track and a more focused attention on what they're supposed to do, right? So you have the same goal, you have somebody who is summarizing, somebody who said, but she said we're supposed to do that. So somebody brings somebody back on track if they're not asking or trying to answer the question that was asked, right? We have accountability, everybody in there. And sometimes you can give, if you know you put a bright child in there and the other one is picking up and getting better grades, you can say, you know, this is such a good grouping, and I'm going to tell you something, you're going to get a reward. If this child, whoever name it is, can go up in your grade, you will get another half a point or something. And you can give a reward like that, cost you nothing. Because if the child knows and the child is teaching his peer, that's fair for him to get a little reward. Fair. It's not unfair. So the teacher still provides leadership, but on the side. If they're really stumped, you go in and you do, what is that thing called by Gosky? What is it? We spoke about it before. No, we spoke about proximal development. When you reach at a point where you're stuck, and if you just get somebody to just help you over, then you're on your way now for another time. It's we'll be talking about that later, right? So when you look at what comes out of the group, you'll be able to do an assessment. You'll be able to do an assessment.
So for benefits of groups, you have touched on 2 points so far.
I've touched on many, but
I was sorry about
yes, yes. So I've done the processing in the group so that everybody knows, are we ready? Are we ready? Do we know this? We're supposed to know 4 things. Do you know it? Do you know it? Do you know? And somebody there is going to take a role and say, tell me them. So you kind of do a little rehearsal before you get out of the group so that you can promise. Sometimes what they do too, if some children are shy, they might go up with a peer to the board and say, I'm going to take the first part, you take the second part, right? By the time you reach the second part for the shy kid, she sees that no catastrophe happened. This child is still standing intact. They will take bigger chances. So group effort, you get questions asked and answered in the group effort. Okay? All right, so there we are. We are in a situation where it's zone of proximal development. Zone of proximal development is where a kid reaches a point and another kid takes him over, or if you see the whole group is stumped, you go there. Zone of proximal development.
It's different from
Proximal development.
The question is asked, everybody, if this taking the person over the zone of proximal development is different from scaffolding. It is sort of different in what you understand by scaffolding. What do you understand by scaffolding?
scaffolding is like the same thing as somebody actually taking from one level to the other level.
Yeah, but you know, that's too general. You need to be more specific.
Scaffolding.
Yes.
Scaffolding would be something I think is like you use that thing to explain something, but it's not part of the thing. I don't know if I'm right. Yeah, like you use it to explain something, but it's not really a part of the. It uses to make application, like using it as an example, but it really have nothing to do with it. It's not a part of it. I don't know.
Anybody else have another idea?
Pardon me?
And I'm asking anybody else in the class if they have another idea as to what scaffolding is. Anybody? You were saying something. Say something.
No, I'm saying
Can you hear the student?
Yes.
it's like someone they will try to take someone from one level, ask the students from one level to the other, by imparting some sometimes and actually the other side or some mentoring now. I don't recall.
Are you providing support for the students?
You provide support at different levels.
Yeah.
You provide support for scaffolding. You provide support in a predictable way. Like if I were able, scaffolding is more procedural. More procedural in that if the person is working with a problem that is highly procedural, like say long division, if you're in primary school, right? I would do the whole problem one day to the very last step. Maybe say, tell me what's the answer. How do I say my answer? So I would say 55 remainder 3 or something of that nature. Next day or the next time around, I would not do the problem to the very last step. I would leave a step for them to do. Then I would leave the second step and this first and the last step. You know what I mean? So step by step, I would provide less and less support.
This is a subheading or the zone of proximal development.
No, I said scaffolding.
Oh, that's a
I said
separate thing.
scaffolding.
No, meaning scaffolding is a separate thing.
It has a sort of difference because zone of proximal development, the child is coming along, and knows something. And just by explaining something to them, for instance, I don't know, this is something I'm taking out of my head. Like if I want to find this, if a squared is equal to 9, right? If a squared is equal to 9, what is a? What is a? No. Plus or minus.
Plus or minus 3.
Okay.
Plus or minus, yeah.
When the kid tells me 3, I'm going to say, what is 3 times 3? What is 3 times 3? What is minus 3 times minus 3?
9.
So I'm showing them that I would get 2 answers. That is just the procedure, right? But if I'm looking at a distance problem, and I know that I now have a squared is equal to 9, and because I told them that it is 3m minus 3, if the child understood what I'm talking about and understood where you have a distance that is in context, minus 3 doesn't fit. So I would have to give a justification now. right? I said, remember, distance, you move from point A to point B. So that is more scaffolding where I take you over something. But probably you do not know the procedure for something, and in scaffolding, I go to different points in the procedure and see if you can help yourself to the end. No, that is reshaping something for something else. But if in a procedure you cannot follow the steps, right? Like in the long division, I said to my students, go do something beautiful, right? It's the same things. Go means guess, so then you multiply, you subtract, and you bring down. So go do something beautiful. So G for guess, M for multiply, S for subtract, and B for bring down. So you can give that kind of support. Okay? Like in trig is soccer talk. Everybody knows that, right?
Yeah.
People hold that for a long time.
Yes, Sukatua.
The zone of functional development of the scaffolding thing, they fall under abroad.
Not that I know of. It's a way of helping some students because you're providing different levels of support.
So it's levels of support.
So here we are. We have that. So we learned that we can help kids by asking questions, and we can help kids if they're doing group work. They're still asking questions, maybe not with the question sign at the end of the statement, but the reaction or the action, and which gives us affect. Affect. What is affect? Anybody knows what's affect?
Like attitude?
Attitudes, yes. If every time I say, we're going to have a test, you get long-faced, you can't deal with it. But you answer in class. So how come? Affect is, sometimes you have math phobia. Sometimes you know, just the word math, and you do not realize that you have been doing umpteen math problems informally, but the one that is in the classroom gets you down, right? That's affect. We define it a million different ways. There's no one way, but is a physical observable reaction to that's one way of putting it. A physical observable reaction to a certain event, right? Some people, if there were sounds, this girl went to an apartment and she said that the apartment has their own sound, so she's moving back home because she came in the apartment by herself and hear something that's affect, you know, it causes a reaction. So here we have a situation where we have affect in mathematics is not always have to do with the cognitive ability. It doesn't have to do with your ability. It's just that you react. Like some people will not drink porridge in the afternoon because they claim what? That porridge is breakfast food.
What's the word? What word is that? The affect?
A-F-F-E-C-T.
Affect?
No, that's a different. Yes. Affect is a person's physical response to a certain thing. Like I say, you can be happy, you can be exuberant, you can be boisterous. That is still beyond exuberant. You know, you can be boisterous about it. You know, some people, if you see them at games, you ever see go boys champs and girls champs, school champs thing, you see some affect there, right? First of all, the old boys come in there with their ties and their whatever, and when the persons are running around the track, you see affect. And some people like me who don't know one thing about anything, I just sit there and eat chips, I eat nuts, I do something. But this guy losing his mind, right? He was just waving and carrying and calling names and, you know, whatever. In America, it's even worse. They bet their houses on the game. They do all kinds of strange things, and they spend buckets of money. Because if the final game is in, if you live in Minnesota and the final game is in Miami, guess what? Tell me what? You book and go to Miami. You have to pay a hotel, you have to pay this, you have to pay parking, you have to pay thousands of dollars of tickets in some to sit at certain places in the stadium. That's affect. That's not effective objectives. That's affect where you respond to a certain situation. Like on this campus, when that fellow is gone to jail now, he was here one day. Vibes Cartel. Now I didn't know he existed. I didn't know. Then I saw this campus just get crowded. And I said to one person, what is happening? So there was you know, I couldn't even hear what she was saying. Like, you know, I am crazy if I don't know that person. But I didn't know he existed on the planet. I didn't know anything. I didn't hear the name before that day. And she just think that I was from Mars and didn't know what was happening until a minute ago. And I didn't even hear the name she called because she spoke so fast because she was in disgust. That is affect. So disgust can make you sad, it can make you whatever. And so we have this affect in mathematics. It's an emotional response.
I was saying, what I earlier affect,
yes.
Reflect on the advertisement, American advertisement.
With the what? Aflac, yes. All right. So you get an affect of depression or something because you know now they're going to ask you to do something in math and that is not really your favorite subject and you have to go produce, right?
To support us. I was in the course.
Yeah.
The level of testing for the students at different level. When the students reach from high school, secondary,
yeah.
it's like they have this program about tests and exams that they fear.
But you know that? Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of fear around the qualifying exams at different levels. The parents get involved, they lose their minds before, and this month is GSAT, 19 and 20th is GSAT. Parents are wild. They will, if anybody says, come and tell something, pay them $3,000 for 1 minute so that they can tell their child something because they want to go to this school or that school, right? And so I know a lady who does the GSAT preparation with students. And do you know, my husband's granddaughter was doing the Saturdays and the whatever, the extra lessons. That lady called the parents together, like maybe 2 nights or whatever, the weekend before the exam. And she told them what the children are supposed to eat before they go to the test. And I knew that, and I told her before. I said, you don't want meat in your system the day of the exam because it depresses your system.
Really?
You want to have wheat, you want to have something like eggs, you want to have something like bread. You carry a little thing that you can eat in to just boost your energy levels. Meat takes a lot of your energy to digest. And do you know the lady told them the same thing? And she had her daughter walk around and took $1,000 from each parent to tell them what they're supposed to eat. And the parent gladly paid it because they don't want one parent to hear something that they weren't there to hear. They're affect. You see what I'm saying?
I can do that.
So the thing is, she had her child, her daughter, because it's in her home, she does this. And she had them to collect $1,000 from every parent, and they said to me, but auntie, you told me already what I'm supposed to eat. But the parents not missing that meeting at that person's house. Because what? I don't want this other parent to have something over me. Because they went and heard and didn't hear. Right? And I'm telling you, but you know, they make a sacrifice. They make the sacrifice. And so therefore, As I said, affect is hard to determine, but it's an emotional response to something that even depresses your cognitive ability because you already believe you can't do it. You already believe that you cannot do it. And so therefore, you have this kind of there's no self-regulation. You lose all control. You know, you lose all control. The parent, are you going to the meeting? Are you going to the meeting? You know, that kind of a thing. Right? GSAT parents are, because stakes are high. You don't want to be sent to Waterford. You don't want to be sent to Waterford High. People don't want to go there. People don't want to go to Marcus Garvey. Nobody ever writes on their paper that their school of choice is Marcus Garvey. And they have 2,000 children. Because you're sent there. So the thing is, you want somebody to be able to read that affect and get you settled. I was in the States when my child was leaving high school, and you take GSAT, not GSAT, you take SAT to go to high school, right? I didn't give him one extra lesson, I didn't do anything. He just did his homework every night and I checked it during school. And he's a merit scholar. But the thing about it is that some parents don't, they themselves went to good school and they don't trust themselves. I'm not telling my kid to do any extra lessons. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Very sorry. So the thing is, that's not affect. So, yeah. So, you know, the thing is, and the children who are in the low socioeconomic level, where they really cannot manage, they have a different affect because they give up. There's no such thing. There's no such thing.
If a child don't learn, the child feels the teacher.
That's right.
Okay. Some people, they just do well when it comes to this reading thing. Some are better with their hands.
I don't believe that.
Okay.
I have seen.
The thing about, you have to talk to the rest of the class.
I have seen children at this high class, if you want to call it, prep school. Right? They had a classroom with some special kids, and they weren't learning. And two of them were taken from that school to another school, and those guys achieved mastery in a year, and they couldn't learn.
That's true.
And these are guys with speech impediment, whatever, and they learned. So
I believe they have different people. Let me tell you, no, but you see, even so,
these latent abilities can be brought out. It depends on how much you are willing to put in.
That's right. Exactly. And you know what also, you know what is the problem too? You know what's the problem also? Staff room is a poisonous place.
Exactly, because you have
staff room is a poisonous place.
If you don't set your standard and you go to the staff room and then you're basically, you're just there like a sponge and everything just comes in.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you go into the staff room and you hear that such and so brother is at school with us, has just come down there in the 7th grade, high school. And the boy doesn't know if he's coming or if he's going. That's what one teacher read. Unlike his sister, who I had, who was this and was that and the other thing. The other teachers poison other teachers about students, and teachers and people readily accept information for which they have no proof. I know this teacher who told the principal, I want every kid that you would label down. Those are the ones I want. Those are the ones I want. And he makes something out of them. If you should happen to go to this one up here, this CC school, of our folklore, Campion. Because your father went there and you are retarded, they make something out of you. Retarded, they make something out of you. What you're saying, a child, Skinner says, you investigate Skinner as one of yours in the $3,000 essay. Skinner says, $3,000 essay. Investigate Skinner. Skinner says, I must be able to speak to a child at their level, is able to understand and teach him anything that is age appropriate for him.
Okay, you know, something that I really look at too, you see, if you're not, you have to be a reflective teacher. You can't, you have to be open, you have to have a...
Because you see, you're going into teaching with a mindset, and there's no change.
And then you can't be narrow-minded because, miss, you know what, okay, you know what I saw at one point, and this is something where I like evidence. I don't know, maybe it's all that statistics that I've learned and all. I like having evidence. And one thing I saw when I was, you know, many persons, they think when you're going to prep school, you're going to make it into the top school rather than if you're going to primary school. I experienced it myself wherein for the first 3 years at primary level, I was at prep school. And I'm from Westmoreland, and I wanted to go to Manning School, you know? Because an older sister of mine went to Manning School. My dad, you know, that's where he passed first. So I said, I have older siblings who they went to Manning. So I said, I want to go to Manning's, and everybody, you know, all about Manning's. And
that was at private school?
No, that's the Manning High School. Okay. But I was in prep school then saying I wanted to go to Manning School. Mm-hmm. And I had to go to primary school after. I started primary school in grade 3. Because of the fact that my father, we had to move to a different area, and all sorts of stuff happened. And I was sent to a primary school. See, there were students there saying, "How I am so, you know, I had hair, my hair was down here. They want to in the corner, want to cut my hair out. Boys would pull me and let me fall, you know, and stuff like that." And so, you know, in the first year, I didn't like how I was treated first few months by some students, you know, and then I was transferred again to another primary school for just I think half the semester, like, and then my dad said, you know what, you're going back to that primary school, and he took me there, and when I went there, I still wanted to go to Manning because that's my dad. He asked, so where do you want to go? And I ended up passing for Manning School, and I did not go to any evening or any this or any that. And guess what? That primary school that I went to, most of the students actually got their top grades and went to Manning School. And when I went to Manning School, I saw just a few from the prep school that I came from. Yeah, the thing is that I'm gonna have a mindset that's narrow, saying that if I don't go to or if I don't. I know.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that in Jamaica, the reality is that some people don't choose certain schools, period. Matter is fixed. It's over. Because they do not choose certain schools because they think, you know, the reputation, the history of passing and all of that. But I believe that I don't mean a child who is, you know, autistic and cannot, about a wheelchair is going to run 400 yards. I'm not talking about that. That is different. But what I'm talking about is a situation where if you're going with a mindset, you're going to come out with that mindset. You're going to come out with it. That, you know, children, and some children are late bloomers, some people, you do not appeal to them. My brother is a genius, and he has achieved very little compared to the rest of us. Because he sees everything to the finished point. He gets very impatient with people who can't see that. And so therefore he stayed away because he started already. He was going to school and I went to the school and I said, you know, my brother has now come to school for such and such. And then what happened, the teachers, to the man, to every person said, he knows more than all of us here. So ask him to come back and just do just this so that we can, with a half a conscience, check off that yes, because he knows. He knows more than everybody here. Yes, and my brother would not go back.
I thought I was a dunce in English because, you know, I'm here saying, you know, I'm better at math. And then it's
yeah, but the point we're trying to make is this, that we have to look at our students, we have to get to the point where we appeal to them. That is why I said, if you look at the different levels, you appeal to them on the quiz, you appeal to them in your questioning, you appeal to, yes, you appeal different, so that people can join in. And the guy who is counted to be dumb, as I said last week, you're going to have a one-on-one with him. You're going to help him. You're going to rehearse with him. You are going to say, you have to go to say, you have to, not even that, no, I'm not. Say for instance, he will never give a report because he doesn't speak in front of people. I'm going to get that child to give a report. Because you know what? First of all, he's going to have the information written down. He's going to have his project, as I said before, is going to be stretched out over time, because just to give him that big ball of wax and say, this is January the 20th, and on March the 28th, you are going to give a report. No way. He's not going to do it. Probably he might not have the help at home. Probably he might not have the encouragement at home, because probably he's brighter and the parent joining, dumbing him down, and that kind of thing. You as a teacher can say, at such and such a time, I want you to bring in this part of it. At the next time, I want you to bring in the next part of it. And by the time he looks around, his project is complete. Then I'm going to tell him to give me the report back one-on-one. And I'm going to say, when you go in there, I want you to have this piece of thing right here, and that is what you're going to summarize. That is what you're going to do, and give him that. And probably another child who is brighter, probably I will even structure the report to be 2 people report. Because the bright child is going to say the bright things, and it won't be the fullness of the group and everything. But I might make it 2 people when I know that you can do it on your own. But just so that when this guy comes up, why is 2 people giving a report? With he being part of them. Everybody's giving 2 reports. So what I'm doing with this child, I am building the confidence. I'm saying to him, I believe you can do it. But you have to spend time.
Especially with children, because you're basically...
Well, that's what we teach.
Well, yeah.
That's what we teach. All right, so, yes.
I was thinking, though, you said something about, some schools you're just not going to place on the paper because of the reputation and so on. But many times the reputation, or the bad reputation that's set, is really based on the teachers in the school.
Well, it's based on, it might be based on,
not just the teachers, but just the performance of the school. And the performance, I mean, what drives the performance?
But you can't tie performance to the teachers only, because you have to...
No, just say all teachers. I'm just saying.
But may I say this? I have been to Denham Town School. Denham Town, people abroad, Denham Town is a school that is in one of the depressed economic areas. And this teacher has, the head teacher, has students who cannot come to school on time. You know why? Because of gang activity. So she doesn't penalize them, because she knows where they live, right? Gang activity, you came past here till such and such a time, la 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 la. But the thing is that she has gotten those same students to do well in terms of what they have in place. You see? Because she says, if you come to school, that's not going to be on your record. If you come to school at all, you're present. Those kinds of allowances. Because if we write off those kids, we're going to see them again in our faces in a different context.
Exactly, when you could have had some positive impact. I don't mean, I'm not generalizing that.
That's correct.
I'm just saying.
The next generation coming up.
Just like you mentioned, you were saying one evening that, that student who came without socks. That's what you were mentioning. Right, like I'm looking at that and I'm like saying, you were even mad about it, that they wanted to send him home. I mean, at least he came.
To go where? Where is he going when they send him home?
And at least he came to school. So I'm not generalizing, saying every teacher. I'm just saying that, many times, the teachers, they're not really accepting.
And these kids are already at risk, because to John Mills School in Crossroads, court-ordered kids go there. And what are we going to do with them? Send them back home.
Basically, when you're a teacher,
okay. Anyway, please remember that you have a 3,000 word essay on Thursday. When did I say it was due? I didn't say it.
Extension.
You extension on what? You don't know the day when it was due?
When it is due.
Hello.
Due date? You did this.
I don't know.
That was the first question.
Lectures don't end until June 2nd, you know.
That's the first question.
May 8th? May 8th? I thought it was June 2nd. But anyway.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes. When does the lectures end?
You said the essay is due when?
I didn't say when it was due yet. We're just trying to find a date.
And I was to tell you, those articles you read from the last time, I have not received anything in the email. You were reading about...
Yes, I haven't sent it. I have not sent it because I want to get a complete list from the office. But I'm going to try to do that. But you said May 8th?
Yes, that's what you did.
Okay.
Basically go through and review, like examine those different research that were done, and then
what their findings for learning. Yes. Okay, we're going to briefly. What time is it? Anybody know?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Okay. I think that probably if it's May 8th, probably it could be, I don't know, April end or something like that. The end of April. I don't see you're asking for extension and you don't know the date it's
Because
due.
for some reason it's in my head
that is what?
So that's a due date. Sometime in May, so I was supposed to come in June.
What?
Let me look at my diary so we can decide, because that you can start at any time. I'm going to talk about some of the learning theories right now. Okay, May 8th is the end, which is a Friday. So our thing would be May 4th, because that is the Monday.
May when?
Wait a minute, I'm just looking. So probably we could get this about, so I get to mark all of them before the end date. Maybe April 24th. 24th? That is only 1 week. No.
Oh,
no. Let us make it April 20th. April 20th. April 20th, the 3,000 essay is due.
April 20th?
Yes, I just said that.
But you said $2,000?
I did say that too. Yes, April the 20th. So let me write that down as well.
It was, and it's also, you have all that written for the presentation of the journal. That's different.
And that's the other thing too. We cannot leave it until the very end because we have to get in the reports that you are going to give. You're going to be sitting right here and I'm sitting down there.
That's for the intervention, Marisa?
Yes. Did you send me anything?
Yes, I sent an email with the
Okay, I'm going to look at it this evening. I saw an email, I didn't know, it said something about something was not delivered. Something like that. So. Okay, all right, okay. So, people abroad. Hello, people.
Hello.
I hope you're starting your intervention pretty soon because you have to give a report on it for 20%.
This is a data sheet that we use for like a student profile at school. For the intervention.
Okay, good. All right, so we have to get started on that. But we're going to have a week there for okay. So we say April 20th is the for the class. April 20th for the 3,000 word essay. I'm going to talk about some of them this afternoon. I talked to you about, I'm going to get class out at about 6:45 and we will talk. Okay? All right.
So Dr. Nelson, you're going to send that paper, right?
I hope so.
You were mentioning about something, the last class about
A profile sheet.
article this, article 7, section 7C, and we should skip CI and all of that. I have not received that article.
Oh, that's the intervention guide.
I have not received it.
Okay, I will send it. I can send it out. The thing is, I'm a little bit challenged to. I have a person who have to help me to scan it in, and I didn't get that person. So I can scan it in. I hope I can scan it in. What tonight? They don't come home from work until after 9 o'clock. But I'm going to try. You get it before too long. In another couple of days. Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right, let us talk about learning theories in mathematics education.
So this is what we're going to write, the 3,000 word essay, right? So, from what I can remember, we're going to select like a few.
How many did I say you had to select? Six. Six learning theories. And constructivism must be a part of it. Constructivism is one of the learning theories. Learning theories. You're going to talk about Skinner, Vygotsky, Piaget, all those people, Lev, and all those, yes.
Question. Are you going to send us the list of theorists? Because we can't understand all the names you're saying.
Yeah, but you can just put up learning theories if you Google it and these names will show up. But I'm going to be calling some of them right now. I'm going to be giving some overview on constructivism. And some of these names will come up. All right? Okay. Learning theories in mathematics education. That's the topic. The question, constructivism claim that they're answering is what we're studying as a title of our course. How do children learn mathematics? That's the question we're trying to answer, that we're doing here. Are there learning theories that are especially relevant to instructing students in mathematics? There is a widely held view that there are theories that are relevant to mathematics education. Although there are dissenting opinions, some suggest that teaching mathematics is not a developmental problem, but learning is based on aptitude. And you know, Piaget is the one who talks about developmental because he has stages. Piaget, P-I-A-G-E-T. Okay. This discussion today will focus on constructivism. This learning theory maintains, this is what it maintains, that human learners are much more involved in their learning than animals. Animals learn mainly by stimulus response approach, and Skinner has that. Constructivism advanced the idea that new knowledge is built or constructed on previous knowledge. This theory provides guidance for curriculum, instruction, and assessment in all content areas. It's especially applicable to mathematics education. Mathematics is more than counting and simple calculations. Mathematics, I call it the servant of every other content area. I call mathematics the servant of every other content area. As mathematics is applied to so many different areas, you get results. And we hold it in our hands these days. Who remembers, but probably you're too young to know, when one computer alone filled this room? One computer filled this room. And then after a while, we had computers about as big as that speaker over there that you carry around with you. You almost needed a car to pull it on, that speaker right there. Because I'm thinking, right? And now it's getting, no, I didn't say printer, this one. You had a big thing like that as a handheld thing. Oh, why am I saying computer? But now there are computers. All your phones, all your everything is computerized. You can get your email, you can get your this, you can get your that, you can find food, you can order food, you can start to call and you're not there, and all this kind of stuff. Because my son has a car that you don't need to start it with anything, but you have to have the key in close proximity, and it starts. Then when the car, it calls your name and asks you, do you want to go home? That kind of stuff. You know, it's ridiculous. So I didn't know one day that. And it's all mathematics based. It all has something to algorithms. Now people are sending these drones for play, and it's really not for play because you can send a bomb on it to places that you don't have to go. You can go over fences, you can do whatever. So math is a servant of every other. So they send one on the White House lawn in Washington, D.C. You could have had a bomb in it. You see? So the thing is that mathematics is really the servant of everything, right? All right, summary. People are born with natural ability to deal with relatively small numbers and make comparisons based on numbers at a glance. That is, you're born with some basic ability. So if I do this and I do that, you might not know how many I flashed, right? But you know one was more than the other. So there's a comparison. We know that. We know that the brain has the capability to learn and use mathematics. The brain has the capability to learn and use mathematics. Intelligence varies in people, but it's not to the point where one can't learn anything at all and one learns something. Because you know, some people, they have met some situations in life where doctors say, you're not going to walk again, or you're not going to do this. And up they get and walk. They can do things far beyond what the projections are. Okay? The mathematical environment for each child varies widely. Because in some homes, there's stimulus, activities, and events, and devices, and all of that. Some 3-year-olds can tell me things that they can do with the smartphone now that I'm not even interested in learning, and they're 3 years old. Some of them are playing violin, some of them are playing piano, some of them are doing different things. Sometimes when you have a family that is all musical, the child starts bang, 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 and don't know what they're banging on the piano till one day they play. So the thing is that everybody has some intelligence, and we do not even use all the intelligence that we have before we die, because it's there, right? Children entering school has various levels of number sense, because sometimes the environment does not provide for that. But in Jamaica here, we have kids who sell things at street light, corner, stop lights, and all of that. They're doing some serious math because every sale is a test. Every sale is a test. They have to compute, they have to give back change, and they can't lose money. Every sale is a test, and we do not capitalize on those things in the math class because we're stuck to page 94, problem 16. You see what I'm saying? If you look at those kids that send them to school, ask why school is so empty on a Friday. They go sell things in the market to buy their lunch for the next week. You see what I'm saying? But we disregard it and we look down on them and they can estimate because, you know, they don't add. They don't add one digit line to the next digit line. They fill out the 10th digit or the 100 digit since we deal with $100. So if you have something for 90 and 50, they don't say 9 and 50. They put on 10 and call that 100 and they get the 140. And that's how they don't do it like you did in class. What? Do we capitalize on that as teachers? Do we capitalize on that? We do not capitalize on that. Because first thing, that kid is from a downtown. And we are from uptown. And we don't calculate like that. But they know already that they have the ability. Because everybody who says that they doesn't do math, they do math. All the time. The thing is that they do not know the algorithms that cause you to put money in a machine and get out something to eat. But because they're end users of the math algorithm. But they do regular math in their lives. There's some people, say the farmer, he knows that next year he's not going to plant cauliflower because this year he had it and he couldn't sell it. But next year he's going to plant something. Sugar cane or something. The demand for it was exactly. Okay. All right. Although standard curriculum is offered in school, the actual curriculum that you teach, you know something called the hidden curriculum, where you have to teach it. Because some of you who are teaching 7th grade high school people have to be teaching 6th grade facts. That is not the curriculum for high school, but it is necessary to be taught, so you have to teach it. Okay. You have to ask questions about what they know before you pile on what they're supposed to know in the 7th grade. Okay? So the actual curriculum varies in all its component parts, in the instruction, in the assessment, and in the motivation. So the teacher can't say they're supposed to know that from the 6th grade, or the 8th grade teacher say I have to know that from the 7th grade because they want to check off some kind of curriculum boxes that they're finished this course. In any class of student, there's always a huge variability of mathematical knowledge and skills because sometimes in an environment, preschool, you know, before the child starts going to school, the parents have seen to it that they read books, that they talk. Do you know that you can talk mathematics to your child at a very early age, right? So because you can talk about, bring me 2 of this, or bring me something red. Those are attributes. And when you're doing set theory, you have to have attributes well defined to collect these things in a set. So you don't say, bring me the thing. And Jamaican people love to talk about the thing. You talk about the red book or the green sweater or something because you're training the child's mind to look at attributes. And look at how many things, attributes you have to describe to get some things to be in a set. The child. Sometimes you can give texture. You know, let the child feel some texture. What the texture for different things is going to tell them. If it's rough, if it's smooth, they know. Okay? So the thing is that sometimes children come equipped with that because the parents were diligent. And sometimes the parents do not see the value in it because they were not apprised that there is some value in speaking to their children. Right? if you say, you're taking longer than I thought you would to do this, you're teaching mathematics because time elapsed, that kind of a thing. You know, and it's not a scolding, it's just expressing a thought. The instructional process needs to consider the differences through appropriate use of constructivist teaching and learning principles, because children come with different readiness skills. Different readiness skills. Standard component of constructivist teaching and learning environment are journaling. Isn't that a big thing? To write a journal for a student, a big thing. What the journal does, summarizes, it explains, and some kids don't know. What did you do in math today? I don't know. What did you learn? I don't know, in general. But if you break it down, tell me what classes you went to first period, what class you went to second period. And if you look at it like that, oh, she was talking something about Venn diagrams. You see what I'm saying? So the thing is that sometimes we as parents can help, and you don't, but you see, you have to increase your awareness, right? You have to increase your awareness. Okay, so standard components of the constructivist teaching learning environment are journaling, problem-based learning. So the thing is what is problem-based learning? It's what I do with my hands to reach to the point where I am, what I'm to produce. That you're in the situation. There are some students who are not going to learn in just the abstract. Nothing is wrong with their brain, it's just the way they learn, learning style. So if you have, like you were saying something about the drafting guy and the mathematics. He's doing big mathematics, doing those drawings. But the thing about it is, nobody values it for him. Nobody gives him time to express himself, his answer in that mode. Because we want to be a big check and a date scene. Check. Today's what? 2, you do the day first, you do the month first. The day first. 2, 3, 15 in red, and we think our job is done. And we don't know anything about the child. You see? But we have to mark it because the HOD is going to say, how come you're still here? And we are supposed to be over there, right? So they call it situational learning sometimes. That's why if I have to make a chair and I make the legs, 4 different lengths, I'm not going to get a chair. Who's going to pay for that wasted material? I might never get a chair. But if I have to make a chair and I have to be careful with my measuring and measure 3 times and cut 1 time, it's situational learning. And generally in carpentry, you have 1/8, you have 3/8, you have 5/8. You go to buy those little pipes at Phil's Hardware, you have to be into 1/4 inch this and that. And if you have a piece of pipe, the inner diameter is different from the outer one, and it makes a difference. It makes a difference. You see what I'm saying? We paid $7,000 to put on a little. I told the man what was needed. He said, how do you know? I said, don't worry yourself. But anyway, the thing is that the pipe to bring the water to the refrigerator is different from the pipe that leads out of the refrigerator itself. So to connect them, you need a bigger to go down to a smaller to connect the thing. He used plastic. We turned it on the pipe, the water shoot out because it's not fitting. $7,000. I don't have any ice. We called him back. He hasn't come yet. But tomorrow I'll be at home. And when I call tomorrow, somebody's going to come tomorrow. Okay. Somebody's going to come tomorrow. There's no freezer like that. No, I can put freezer at the bottom. because I have a refrigerator with freezer at the bottom. So I put in some water, but you have to chip it and all of that. And I have a refrigerator that is supposed to make ice cream. Anyway, all right. So here are some of the names. Here are some of the names. Thorndike, Thorndike.
These are constructivists. Are just theorists. They are just theorists. Piaget and they are Thorndike.
Piaget, and I spelled that for you already. Piaget.
I asked if Thorndike was a constructivist
Yes,
as well.
It's just seeing how these theories line up with this idea of constructivism.
Oh, okay. So he's among those.
Mm-hmm. But some people take it from developmental point of view, some people take it from the cognitive point of view, some people take it from the situational point of view, you know, different things. Okay? Have you these names? Do you have these names?
P-I-A-G-E-T. Thorndike, C-H-O.
R-N-D-I-K-E.
Thorndike.
Then we have Brunner.
What's the last one?
Brunner. B-R-U-N-E-R.
No.
What's it? B-L-U-N-E-R. I wouldn't vote for.
Brunner. We have Vygotsky. Listen carefully.
Why?
We have Vygotsky. V-Y-G-O-T-S-K-Y.
These things, I don't know any of these names because my field is definitely not anything psychology or socio whatever.
Most of them. Those are just to name a few. We are looking at how these theories that I've mentioned align with this whole idea of constructivism. How do these theories fit with constructivism? One says that this person, von Glasersfeld says, G-L-A-S-E-R-S Field, F-I-E-L-D. He says that knowledge is not passively received. It is enhanced by the learner. What he's saying, in other words, is that whenever you get some information, whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, it goes through your filter. It goes through your filter. If somebody comes to you and say, I would like to go in business with you. I want you to finance this business. And I will get, he doesn't have any money, but he has know-how. And he says, but I want to make this deal. I get 51% of the profit and you get 49%. How does that hit you? I'm financing it. We are working together to accomplish the business goals. And he says, I want 51% of the profit and you get 49%. How would you react to that?
I'll tell him that because he's planning to overthrow me.
No. No.
Yes.
He's gonna give us your capital. Let's do it.
I didn't say that. I said we're both going to be working on it, but he doesn't have any money.
And he wants
So
I am going to finance it, and I'm going to do some of the work.
Hell no.
That's all.
No.
Bye-bye.
So
You're being recorded. You're being recorded.
my capital
And my sweat.
know-how, and he's just gonna be providing
Know-how. Yes,
He's a scam.
and he wants 51%.
that's correct.
So where's the equity there?
So what I'm trying to tell you, based on what you know before and the present situation, it passes through a filter and you reject it. Okay. Now, suppose somebody comes to you and says, you know, I've had this pain for the longest while in my knee, it's a sports injury. And I was able to use thus and such, and I got rid of it. And you have a pain in your knee, right? The thing about it is, you might not reject it as quickly as you just reject that other proposal. You must say, you know, I use it. Yeah?
It doesn't come through a medical filter.
Yeah, not that, but it comes through testimony, right? And it's not going to affect you adversely because it's not something you're taking in through your mouth. So you might want to volunteer and say, you know, it's a bush that I'm going to boil. What does it cost me? I mean, it can hurt me if I put it on my thing, you know, and so on. So it goes through a filter, no matter what information you get. It goes through a filter and you see if it makes sense. If you can change your mind about what you thought you knew before and you can add it on. So that is what they're saying, that people do not receive anything passively. It gets acted upon and you either take it and make it something or you can reject it outright. And I gave those two extremes example to show you that everything you encounter, it goes through a filter in your mind. You don't have to be medical, but what's to lose? What's to lose? Somebody said if you boil this thing and you take it, it will stop you from getting colds easily, right? You might want to put that to a different filter because you're going to introduce something in your body. But if I'm going to put it on my knee, right, it's a different assessment because it might work for me as well as it worked for him because he's giving personal testimony and he has no negative feelings against you. He's not trying to hurt you. So you go through a different filter. So that's what this man Gasserfield is saying. He said cognition, the way you understand, receive, and store things is adaptive. Because you're always changing. If I come to you with a problem in math, right? And we both did it on a test. And you get 95 and I get 55. I might want to inquire from you. What you do? Because you look like you have the recipe for getting the thing right. You see what I'm saying? So it goes through a filter. You know, and probably the next time I'm absent from class, I might try to get your notes because you have proven already by evidence that you have got the picture. You understand it, plus you might take better notes because you understand it. So all of those things, and it caused me to probably change my opinion about you, and that's learning. Somebody said, pill for brains. I didn't read the passage the teacher gave us. And I know you're diligent. You always read the passages because you're functioning up here in the class. So what I do, tell me what you read, because I didn't get a chance to read it. My parents went to country, the car broke down, didn't come back to do whatever. And I come, so I'm changing my schema now to fit with the situation. And so that's what Gasserfield says. That's why the constructivist approach is appealing to some people, because what happened, they say, we do not learn just because we are 8, we know what 8-year-olds is supposed to learn based on this. We might be far advanced or we might not be. So knowledge is not passively received. it is enhanced by the learner. When you hear something ridiculous, you reject it immediately. When you hear something that might work, you process it a little bit more. That is what the constructivist approach. And so they are saying that we learn in society, right? If I'm talking to you about something, sometimes you say, you know, you keep your business to yourself. But sometimes if you speak in a group, somebody had a similar experience and was able to resolve it in a, what you'd say, a profitable manner. Not from money-wise, but, you know, things didn't go any worse. It got better. Okay? Cognition is adaptive, and it seeks to organize the experimental world. Because sometimes we do not know the answer to everything, but it takes us further along to our goal. And that's what we call store of knowledge. When we get knowledge and we get knowledge and we get knowledge and we get knowledge, our store of knowledge is building. Okay? And that's the reason sometimes in situations, I know it was very dramatic for me, in a school setting that I tutored children who had emotional problems and drug problems and all the other problems. They did not hire any of the social work people, not the social work in the strictest sense, but the ones who interact with students, unless they are past drug addicts, because they know how they think. They know that they send drugs on the stamps. You know, they get letters at the hospital. They send it there. They know where they put drugs. They know that sometimes they pour drugs into soda cans, you know, into whatever they're drinking or whatever. They know that. I am dead to the world like the Vibes Cartel thing. I don't know all those things. You see what I'm saying? So the thing is that you get information, you process it, you attach it to your information that you already possess in your own way. If it's going to help you, you attach it there for help, or you say, no, I reject this. That is not going to change my mind from where I was. The first principle is widely accepted. The second, in the mind of the learner. Problem solving and action from the foundation on which the student becomes an active learner and not a passive spectator. Because you're processing, you're forever looking, you're talking, you're in a social situation, talking about something specific. Probably like the mathematics. Probably it is something, how to get, some last week brother, how to get the place painted. Right? Somebody might say, not only the amount it needs, but they might want to talk about the color, right? Because if this room was painted in a darker color, probably it wouldn't be as bright. You see what I'm saying? Probably it wouldn't be as inviting. So all those things are there. And Garnier is another one. They didn't mention Skinner here.
Skinner,
yes. Lots of them. Garnier, he talks about that, and we have Gardner's intelligences, which I do not buy into, but anyway.
Multiple intelligences.
Eh? I'm not going to tell him. He has about 5 or 10 intelligences. 9? Well, I do not know, but the thing about it is, if we were to subscribe to all those intelligences, we could not have school. We would not have the framework, because some would be off backgrounding, some would be under the table studying, some would be playing music, some would be doing this. And I don't think the system accommodates those kinds of intelligences until after you have had a basic education. So you can go to Edna Manley. The other one can go to, you know, someplace else and so on. But to do all those intelligences in grade school, it seems to me like it wouldn't work.
I think, I don't know if it will come from the working perspective, but I think the students see the world through their intelligence. So, for example, students who have interpersonal intelligence will socialize differently from a person who is intra-intelligent. So
yes, some of those things that he has named are already being practiced because you're a social being.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But the one who's going to do horseback riding, and the one who's going to do music whenever he feels like it, and sleep when he feels like it, and all this other stuff, I don't think it's going to work. I really don't think so.
Well, unless the teacher is, say, dynamic, so basically, once a child comes into class, if a student has a musical intelligence, like Bob Marley, they will probably, when you want to introduce a topic or you want the class to have a song for that lesson, you could join those skills from that child to.
Yes, I'm saying some of them will work, but some of them are too far out to lend any structure to the learning environment. Because if a child is to show comprehension through rapping or singing, I have no problems with that. As a matter of fact, I let a child do that and we give him the background, the whatever that he needs. But the thing is that you do not, some of them cannot be accommodated very readily in the established atmosphere that we have called classrooms. Okay. So it says that problem solving and action from the foundation on which the student becomes an active learner and not a passive spectator. The assumption is that the child has a framework. And if this doesn't fit, you can argue with me until I show you where it could fit. Or I will still reject it at the end of the social interaction. Okay? That's the basic principle. That people learn in communities. Mathematics, as powerful as it is, as powerful as mathematics is, it was created because people needed a way to interact. And when math was first created, they didn't know anything about zero. They didn't know anything about, they know about 1 and 1. And 1 more and 1 more and 1 more, but they didn't give it a sum. You see? Then they realized that that was not efficient to conduct business. And so they began to look at foot. A foot. Yes. And then it was base 5 because we had 5 fingers on one hand. Then it turned base 10. Then and after 0 now we could have. That's all that knife was, wasn't it? Oh Lord, who's this? I don't know this person. Hello? Yes. Is it 7 o'clock yet?
6:41.
I'm coming over at 7 o'clock. All right. So the thing is that everything you get, you feed it into your already existing store of knowledge. You see if it makes sense. Does it make sense? It doesn't make sense. And the proposal about the business didn't make sense. It got rejected. The next proposal, I could try it because it doesn't injure me, it doesn't cost me, it doesn't do that. And so they say that it happened. And they say you can talk, and you can see, and you can conjecture, and you can try to prove and work all of that out. But except that you don't have the teacher just feeding and feeding and feeding. Okay? So, if the assumption is that the child has a framework on which to build new structures. If the learner has a knowledge base on which the new knowledge cannot be built, then the teacher has to build the knowledge base, enhance it. So remember this, or see that this works, and so on, so on. So yes, the teaching process can either help or frustrate the process. One part of the processing of constructing meaning involves learners who are willing to share their beliefs. Social environment again, talking. Okay? Overriding theme then is that the learner is an active participant in the learning process. The child is an active participant. Active versus passive. Okay? It advances the idea, that is constructivism, advances the idea that the student's store of knowledge, thinking process, linguistic abilities guide the students' learning. The effective teacher must use the skills exhibited by the students to determine the direction of the instructional program. What does that mean to you? What does that statement? Let me read it again. The effective teacher must use skills exhibited by the students to determine the direction of the instructional program. What we spoke about last week, about teacher characteristics. We had teacher knowledge, we had teacher quality, and teacher quality involved the F word.
Flexibility.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Flexibility. Yes, flexibility. So you have to know if this thing is going this way, you have to have enough knowledge in your schema to redirect the child. Okay? To redirect the child. So you know that it advances that the idea that the child's store of knowledge, thinking process, language abilities, and language is something we have to discuss because it's critical in Jamaica. Critical. Language is critical in Jamaica because of this platform. Critical. And language is not only verbalizing or writing, but it's body language, affect again. You see what I'm saying? It's all of that. So the thing is that the effective teacher must use skills exhibited to know where the class is going. Vygotsky says in 1998 that knowledge is constructed in groups and that individuals construct knowledge in a social context. The exchanges that takes place in group motivate participants to change their position and their thinking. In meeting these challenges, people move closer to one acceptable view. That means a consensus. Like for instance, why it is that our curriculum is written the way it is written and includes what is included in there.
For example, as it relates to the social.
Yes, social context.
I will go back to the primary level. At the primary level, the curriculum there is set in such a way that students actually learn from the environment. For example, back in the day, students were cricketing in the road or fly kite. The curriculum is set based on those things what students should learn and be knowledgeable about at that time. Therefore, once you set a curriculum, it's supposed to be reflecting mark in the society so that students can fit in and not be probably.
I agree with what you said, but I'm saying, who writes the curriculum?
It's curriculum developers who probably work with the government.
Who is the main body who publishes the curriculum? The Ministry of Education. So what they have written the curriculum, they have written a curriculum. What do you think it's based on?
It's the objective of wider society. Schemas, yes.
Yes, I'm listening. Somebody said to function effectively in the society.
Knowledge, the socioeconomic, or the economic, the economic status. So they want you to, sometimes they're trying to set, they're saying, because we have schools wherein they'll be basically driving kids to want to think that, okay, it's best if you go and study law, and, best if you study to become a doctor or a nurse or stuff like that. So it's the economic. So when you see the countries that are having a certain economic status, then you would want them trying to basically indirectly drive kids down a certain road. So they set the curriculum in that aspect,
Yes, but the thing though is, suppose we don't go on to become lawyers and doctors and what?
Exactly.
Suppose you can function in society. Yes. So really, the curriculum is built around the values that we hold dear. It's a consensus. It's coming to a conclusion that by the time you leave high school, you should know this and you should know that and you should know the other. Because some people are not all going on to college. But I must know that when a furniture store tells me I'm going to pay $0 down and no interest for 3 years, I have to go fit that now into my schema. I said, do I really think that my mother probably wouldn't do that? So why are they doing it? And are they really doing that or just word speaking? You see? So they're training me to know that in the society, I will make decisions based on sound judgment. And they believe that all these skills together that we get from the exposure to school for 12 years will make me that person that I can function effectively in society. Now, sometimes they drive us into the different professions because they take a census and they realize we're going to have a lot of children. Or we have a lot of children already and we do not have teachers who are equipped. So they might say, we'll pay your way through college, which is an added incentive for you to go and become a teacher in this era because we're finding out that there's a shortage or there's an anticipated shortage based on our census. But the curriculum itself is a consensus among the people of the country who decides. If Grace Kennedy wants an actuarial person, who's the one? Sagicor, I mean. If Sagicor wants a person who's an actuarial scientist, he's going to come to you and say, who is the best student in your class? He's going to ask that in that faculty and find that this person is showing by their very attitude that they would make a good actuarial scientist. And so they get that. So really, the curriculum is built around societal needs. Just like mathematics was built, because mathematics used to say, I have 1 cow and 1 stone to represent the cow. But they didn't say I have 50 cows. They said, I have 1 cow here, and 1 cow there, and 1 cow there, and 1 cow there. And so they might have had 50 cows, they might have had 20 cows, but the 1-to-1 correspondence is the way they counted, till they realized that they needed something bigger. Because they used to barter before they had money as the medium of exchange. And they used to write, they used to make marks on sticks to represent base 5 when they were using base 5. Then 10, just like we use quiz and near rudge. Yes. So that is what is happening to us today. So I will pick up again on these people here. And I promise that I'm going to try to get to scan these things inside and send it to you for the intervention.
Thank you.
All right. So you have a good evening and we'll see each other next Monday, God's willing.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Dominica's signing off.
Hi, Dominica.
Bye.
Hi, Dominica. See you next week.
Same time, same.
Yeah.
And the early. Okay. Really though.
Who will be early?
She's going to
She's gonna be early. That's what she said.
I'll be early.
Well, I'm here all by myself. I'm here by myself. I'm here.
Yes, after talking about it. But I will fly home tomorrow.
Yes, I am. I'm broke, but I'm willing to bet.
Sitting and waiting for you need to.
we have to go through, right? But it's not we have not done it, but for me, I have done it. Because it's supposed to be done, but something that's based on work with more of it.
Do you give them a guidance?
That was supposed to be done.
Well practiced.
Yes, they have been like they didn't protest because they were saying it will this brilliant area.
Well, yes, what else?
The group students by last night placing my class.
By what?
By last time I placed my class because it was more easier for them to enter results and system model. So they copied the idea of doing that.
Oh.
So basically that was
so you sent me the information then to get in touch with your principal.
The HOD.
The HOD.
Yes, but I can probably write it